I was particularly taken with that last presentation, most of which went over my head, obviously, but with the idea of policy sliders, because that's the interesting bit for me, is when you can turn all of this technology into tools for local authorities having to do all the balancing and making the difficult decisions. But if they've got the tools to do it with and they can actually use them like a graphic equalizer, and I know what they are, that seems to me like exactly the sort of outcome that we want. So the plan for drivers. So this is a bit of a screeching handbrake turn compared to the more technical elements of the event. But this is the world in which I live, in which the department lives. I would like to say that I don't think the election which is coming will change much of this conversation, because I can't say that for sure, because I don't know what the outcome is going to be. But I think what I would say is that most of the issues that we're trying to address here are not party political ones. Some of what I'm about to talk about is very party political, but the idea that anybody's in favour of roadworks or congestion is clearly nonsense. So I think all the things we're doing are all things that any incoming minister is going to say, "Oh, thank you very much. Carry on doing that. Do more of it." So I'd feel pretty confident that we're going to survive a general election. Under the current government, we do have a plan, and it's called the Plan for Drivers. It came out in October last year, and it sets out 30 ideas, commitments of various kinds, of things that the government was going to do, and we're in the midst of doing them right now. And more than half of them actually fall into the team I manage in the department, so it's a real thing for us. So I'll just go back to kind of just a bit of context. So this is the idea. So last summer, kind of spring, summer, the government, and I mean the government from the Prime Minister down, started to get very interested in the idea that we should do more for the driver, that somehow we'd sort of tilted things too far away from the driver. So they set out to kind of piece together some things we could do, some things we were doing, I'll come on to that, and some new ideas. And they grouped them under sort of 5 broad themes of kind of area, which I would think of as the sort of hygiene factors of driving, many of which we will experience when we came here, if we came by car or motorbike, and when we go home again. Also at the same time, and before the Plan for Drivers was actually published and finalised, the Prime Minister, slightly to our surprise, gave an interview with the Sunday Telegraph in July and announced a review of low traffic neighbourhoods, which are a particular thing in some towns and cities. But as part of setting out his stall in saying that he was going to do things to help the driver. And LTNs were just one kind of case in point. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing. So it was published in October. We've done various things since then, and progress has basically been reported through a series of kind of PR packages, so comms moments as we call them internally. So grouping together various things we're doing, which creates some difficulties because government doesn't kind of neatly work to a comms timetable, so we've had to do a little bit of pushing and shoving to get things out. This is not everything we're doing. There are some other things, for example, on the National Highways Network. They're slightly incidental, I have to say, to what the Plan for Drivers is really about. But so there are some other things happening. But these have been the 3 pulses so far of things we've done. And I think very quickly you can start to see why the kind of the headline of each one is something that the government is deliberately trying to kind of land as something to help the motorist. So the first one is roadworks, the bane of our lives, where we had previously already done a consultation on things that we were going to do to improve the way that street works are carried out. So not just carried out, but planned, where collaboration can happen between local authorities and utility companies, and then delivered. So the Plan for Drivers neatly provided a vehicle for us to publish a consultation response about, on the one hand, about TROs, come back to that, but also to say something about things that we could do. We were already doing masses of stuff on streetworks, more things we could do. So we've basically launched a consultation. We've had the responses to that. 450 responses. Remember that number, I'll come back to it. That's a lot for a policy consultation on something like this. And it's touching on things like the costs of works that overrun at the weekend, the fixed penalties that people will pay, where utilities typically will pay when they're overrunning, and also where lane rental schemes exist. There's only a few so far, but where they do exist, how some of that money could be diverted into highways maintenance, specifically pothole repair. So that was one batch of stuff. We also took the opportunity to publish a slightly long-awaited consultation response, which was about reforming traffic regulation orders and crucially committing to digitalise them, which was slightly ironic because there was already a bill in Parliament by that point mandating digital TROs, but we confirmed that we were definitely doing that. And obviously that's been a big feature of the discussion here. And we also produced something, a traffic advisory leaflet, if you're not sure what a TAL is, about the current policy on motorbikes and bus lanes. So that was January. February was about EVs and EV charge points. So there were a number of things launched, including a new grant scheme so that schools can receive money to set up charge point hubs so that their facilities can be used also for that purpose, which was a kind of an addition to the existing grant schemes. And we issued some guidance about Section 50 licences. By the way, if this is all a bit too esoteric for you, I think the coffee's still flowing, so I won't be upset. So some guidance about Section 50 licences, which is basically about the way that charge points are currently constructed. So it's the kind of planning regime. So the idea was to try and help the rollout of EV charge points by making the regulatory planning process a bit simpler. But we also talked about shifting it on further and actually bringing all of that into the permit system that exists for streetworks. So that was the second moment, and that was largely about EV charging. And then the third one, the mega one, the longest list so far, was on St. Patrick's Day, which was on a Sunday, if you remember. And that meant my weekend was completely ruined because a Sunday announcement involves doing things on Friday and Saturday. So anyway, this was went more to the heart of what the Plan for Drivers is really about, because this was publishing some new statutory guidance about how you should go about installing low traffic neighbourhoods, so a very contentious subject. We also published a call for evidence about the way that local authorities currently, when they develop surpluses from the revenue they receive from moving traffic enforcement, which is largely a London thing at the moment, but is starting to roll out across the rest of the country. So what they would do with that, and this goes to the more political elements of what the Plan for Drivers is about, which is about what is commonly called overzealous enforcement. So local authorities using enforcement as a means of raising revenue. Now, you can throw tomatoes at me if you like, but that is the political kind of world that we live in. And this is very much a kind of a dividing point between where the current government wants to be and other political views. So that is where we are. So this is definitely into the kind of political heart of the Plan for Drivers. There was also one of our slightly more unusual elements in the plan was about changing the rules on how motorbikes use bus lanes. Just out of interest, how many motorbike bike riders, apart from Steve, are in there? Yeah, I know you do. Okay. Right. Are you one of the 12,000 people so far who's responded to the consultation? Well, 12,000 people have. So bear in mind, 450 responded to something about roadworks, the bane of all our lives. So there's a lot of motorbike riders out there who are very bothered about wanting to get in those bus lanes. So anyway, that's still running, so you've still got time. There was £50 million for traffic signals, but you don't care about that, do you? He's going to talk about that a bit more. But joking aside, That was the only really big investment announced as part of the plan for drivers, and that was the £50 million that we have awarded. Obviously, there's another £20 million to come. So £70 million of investment in traffic signals was, for us, a huge coup that we managed to make the case for doing that as part of what was, had quite a strong political edge to it, whereas spending money on traffic signals is not really a party political issue. So that was a big coup for us. There were some changes to the way that 20 mile an hour sort of zones are introduced, where the guidance has kind of discouraged kind of area-wide 20 mile an hour zones and sort of think that they should be more kind of locally specific and sort of road specific. And the fact that the Welsh government had introduced something on 20 miles an hour is, well, obviously just a coincidence. There was guidance on lane rental schemes, so this is where local authorities can introduce a scheme to charge quite hefty charges for works being carried out at the busiest roads at the busiest times. So it's very much a congestion busting measure, because the government's very keen to roll out more lane rental schemes. So if you're even thinking about it, please do, because we've made it slightly easier for you. As somebody did point out to me, we published bus priority guidance but didn't really seem to talk about it. In the context of this plan for drivers, a little thought experiment, try and work out how we would have made a big splash about bus priority guidance in this plan, and you kind of see that we were navigating through quite a narrow channel. So we made sure we got it published. So the fact we didn't make a big splash about it was for kind of handling reasons, but the guidance is a serious piece of work. It's technical guidance to help local authorities introduce bus priority, particularly using technology. So some of the things that we've been talking about over the last couple of days. And then there was a trial report we published about use of noise cameras, which seems to have gone sort of a little bit unreported. But as you can see, it's slightly peripheral to the kind of heart of what the document's about. So those are the three big moments we've had so far, which have been pretty big. And then the final thing to say is, it must win an award for the most boring slide I've ever produced on Tuesday. But the thing to say about it is that clearly, as well as the things that we're doing in pulses of comms moments and announcements, we're actually building the national parking platform, and you've heard about that over the last couple of days. So that doesn't really lend itself to a moment, because we're having endless moments on the national parking platform. Digitising traffic orders is pretty much the same thing. It's an ongoing project that got sort of subsumed into the plan for drivers because it was relevant, because it's about, ultimately, it'll be about making the life of the motorist a bit easier, and lots of other things, obviously. So over the next few months, there's likely to be more comms moments. They're going to be things where we will publish consultation responses, so when we've analysed what people tell us about using motorbikes in bus lanes and other things. There will be the results of the call for evidence about overzealous enforcement and all of that, and revenue surpluses. Some stuff around, more stuff about low traffic neighbourhoods. We will probably finalise the guidance and publish it sometime in the next couple of months. And there's some other things about sort of technical stuff, again on EV charge points, about things like how do you provide cross-pavement charging, which is, for people like me who live in a terraced house, quite an important issue. And as I said, of course, we will be, in due course, announcing who won the £20 million of funding that we've got for the more kind of forward-looking, kind of innovative stuff on traffic signals. Thank you. He tells me off every time I say light. So I think that's basically the plan for drivers. And the reason I kind of, we've included this is that all of the stuff we're talking about needs to happen, needs to carry on, and is really important. But obviously in our world, we've got to try also to navigate through the iceberg-strewn seas of politics. So far, I think we're doing okay. So if we can carry on, and particularly if we can show that money we spend on things like traffic signals gets you as much kind of political dividend as filling a pothole, then who knows, they might give us more money. So there's a real opportunity here, and I think that's going to be part of Darren's message. He said stealing is thunder and possibly trousers. That, it's down to you, because if you make a good fist of this, then you're going to help us to get more money to help you, and on we go. So I think that's it.